Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crime and Entertainment. Big UFC event coming up this week, UFC 294. If you're going to be throwing some money down, there ain't but one guy you need to listen to, and that is my man, Colin Crandall. Colin, welcome back to Crime and Entertainment.
Always glad to be with you, Hollywood Wade. You are the best in the world of crime and entertainment, and formerly the life. To me, you are the best of the best.
Well, thank you, my friend. That means a lot coming from a man of your stature and knowledge, especially in this sport. And we've covered it many times. This is a real hard sport to handicap, because you can have all the knowledge in the world of who has the best training and this, that, and the other. But, one right hand changes everything, as we've seen in the last fight night that we covered, the main event. The heavy favorite did not come out on top like we expected. So you can have all the knowledge in the world, but, everybody's got a fighter's chance, a puncher's chance, as they say. So we can give you the best advice we can. Obviously, we encourage everyone to bet what you're willing to lose. We don't want anybody throwing mortgage payments on these things. But more often than not, if you listen to the advice that you throw out there, you're going to come away counting money as opposed to walking it away with it not in your pocket.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hollywood. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've been following this game since before the beginning. Most of you guys that know me know that I saw the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu action VHS tapes and was familiar with having learned a few techniques about a year and a half to 2 years prior to the first event. Up until maybe 10 years ago, I remembered exactly, but over the last 10 years, it's blurring a little bit. It's either late 1991 or early 92, one of those two, where I became aware of what was going on with a friend of mine who was training with the Greeks in their garage. And so there's some good handicappers out there, people that know a lot, and so I'm not trying to say I'm up here and everyone else is down here, because there's some really good people, but I'm one of the people that is really knowledgeable, and I can definitely give you some advice that makes sense as far as a betting angle and filling you in on really what you're looking at and what the possibilities are from the fight.
Well, UFC 294, let's just get right into it, man. Let's start with the main card here, and we'll work our way up to the main event. Pretty stacked card. We had some late additions to this. Some things got shuffled around. Kamaru Usman getting thrown into the mix. So let's see what you got here. Let's start off with the main card.
All right. So the main card is either has 4 or 5 fights. Well, I know what it is, because that one there is the main on the prelims. And the main on the prelims, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I know that the main card is going to take a lot of time. But the main fight on the prelims is going to be really exciting with Mohammed Mokaev, a guy from originally from, I think, Dagestan, like Habib, or at least that area, but living for years in England and representing Manchester, England. A man named Mohammed Mokaev, only 23 years old, but he's 10-0 in MMA. He's got 7 stoppages, and in the UFC, he is already 4-0 with 3 stoppages, and this is his toughest opponent. This time he drew the veteran American collegiate wrestling expert and just really, really tough veteran in Tim Elliott. And so this is going to be very interesting. You got a 23-year-old who he had a little bit of trouble at one point in his last fight. A guy got him in a knee bar, and he just wouldn't even think of tapping. And I think the guy didn't have the position perfectly, or maybe have the best technique, or just Muhammad was very strong, stayed very calm. He avoided having to tap out, although he did have some pain put on his leg, I think, for a couple of weeks afterwards, but not any sort of torn cartilage or MCL or ACL, which can happen if you're in a knee bar and someone really gets you. But other than that, he's pretty much rolled over everyone, because no one's really had the type of grappling like Eastern Bloc Sambo and Dagestani wrestling. And this is the first time he will be going up against a really good American wrestler, although the American wrestler is 36 years old. Now, at heavyweight or at light heavyweight, as you know, Hollywood, that's not that terribly old. It's not young. But then you start going down, and now you're talking about the lowest weight class in the UFC at 125-pound flyweight, 36 years old. Ain't really the age you want to be when it's all about speed and reflexes. But some of these guys just do not give up. Tim Elliott is actually coming off a 2-fight win streak. The last fight was only 4 months ago. So that should be a really good fight. Moving on, though, to the main card. And I'm sorry I didn't give you a chance on that. That isn't it. And you know what's interesting about that to me, Hollywood? You got a guy at 23 who's about 5 years away from even entering his prime against the guy at 36 who's about 5 years outside his prime for that weight class, right? So neither guy is in their prime, but they're on different ends of the spectrum. I usually fade, which means for people that don't know, I usually bet against a fighter that's less than 26 years old in the UFC. I don't know the exact stat, but a majority of the time they don't win unless they're going against someone else their age. But then again, a lot of these guys that are 21, 22, 23, 24 will go up against the guy 28, 29, 30, 31 right in their prime. And in that matchup, the young guy is only winning at about maybe a 20% split. However, there's two things different here. A, his opponent is not in their prime. He's 36 years old. And B, this guy Mokaev is just an exceptional fighter and from that Dagestan or nearby country wrestling system. So hard guy to fade, and I think he's a fairly substantial favorite as well. In fact, you know what? What would you get, Hollywood, that odds on that would be? Before I look, I'm going to say they're going to make the young man maybe 3-1 favorite.
That's what I was thinking, 3 to 3.5 favorite, probably 350-ish.
Let's take a look. So they have Mokaev minus 450 to minus 520. But the comeback on Elliott is they were plus 330 to 350. Dead on what you're saying if you were meeting his side. So you call that, I guess, it's about a 4-1. So a little bit more than we thought. So, Elliott has value there, but man, this is going to be a good fight. Elliott could win that fight. And he needs it more at 36, but it would sure derail Mokaev. So they're both very motivated for different reasons. Should be a good fight, don't you think?
Yeah, it should be. He's disadvantaged on the reach. I think he's coming in at 66. Mokaev 70, so he's got the reach advantage is not on his side. But I agree with what you're saying when it comes to that. At that weight, you need to be able to be a little bit quicker on your feet, quicker on the draw, so to speak. I haven't seen enough of Tim Elliott's fights to give you my personal opinion of how he will handle this. But like you said, Father Time is the only guy undefeated around here. And when it starts to creep up on the upper side of 40, no matter who you are, you're going to start to see breakdowns. And so when it comes to, I agree with what you're saying. If he was maybe 30 and going up against a 23-year-old, I would like to take my chances. But 36, that's a little too close to 40 for me to back. I'd probably pass on that because those odds are quite high. I'd probably pass on that one, but definitely should be an entertaining fight.
Without a doubt. As they say, he's on the wrong side of 35, as I am. I'm not sure you are too on that wrong side, maybe a little bit, not too much.
Oh, yeah, I'm way past the wrong side.
There we go. We're with you. I'm with you, brother.
I'm on the good side of 40.
There we go. That's a good thing. I'm not even that. I'm on the wrong side of 40 too. But anyway, okay. So next, the first fight on the main card, we have the only man involved in combat sports in the UFC that has the same last name as Khabib, but is not related.
Okay, that was going to be a question I have for you. Was he related?
Yeah, Said Nurmagomedov is the one UFC Nurmagomedov that is not related to Khabib, although he comes from the same town as Khabib. And I think in some of these places, the people's last names or surnames kind of come based on the town you live in, kind of. And so it makes sense. He's from the same area, not related. So Said Nurmagomedov, and he's an experienced UFC fighter. He's not that old a guy, 31 years old. He's 135 pounds, and that's just coming to the tail end of your prime at that low weight. Maybe he's got another year in his prime, but a really, really tough fighter. Out of Dagestan, Russia, just like Khabib. He's 17-3 with 9 finishes. He had a real good little streak going. He started his UFC career 5 years ago with 2 very good wins. He went up against a very tough guy with a great record 4 years ago when he was just 27 and did get edged out. Then he went on a 4-fight winning streak with 3 finishes until he went up against a guy named Jonathan Martinez, who was another top contender like he is. And that was just 6 months ago. And he did lose that fight, although it was very competitive. His opponent, Ewan Gafurov, is a guy from Tajikistan, that similar area. He's only 27 years old. So he is 4 years younger than Saeed. He's an inch shorter at 5'7", and he has almost the same amount of fights. Actually, he's got 3 more fights than Saeed. Saeed is 17-3, and Nguyen is 18-5. Nguyen actually has a higher finish rate. He's got 17 finishes out of 18 fights. However, the important thing with Nguyen is he only has one UFC fight from 4 months ago, and it's a loss. Now, the guy he lost to, John Castaneda, is a good fighter, not maybe a world beater, but a good fighter. But so because of this, I really think this is probably, well, not, I hate to say a setup. There's no setup, but it's almost like a fight probably set to showcase Saeed. I have a feeling Saeed's going to be, you know what? Man, I was thinking Hollywood, he was going to be 3-4 to 1 favorite, but he's not. He's just a 2-1 favorite. So this is interesting because there's nothing wrong with Saeed. Like 31 is not young to be a lightweight, but it's not that old. In the UFC, he's proven to be a winning fighter. In the UFC alone, he's 6-2. But I guess when you come off a loss, the handicappers don't like you. And his partner, the guy he's going up against, his adversary, is also coming up against a loss. I mean, it's a weird fight because Gafurov is younger, but right now he's 0-1 in the UFC. And I think part of UFC's contract is I think they're allowed to cut you anytime. And although I think you're usually signed to a 3-fight contract, I think that was traditional up until a few years ago. Now I'm hearing a lot of guys are signed to a 4-fight contract. But in the picture here on the reference site I'm looking at, Gafurov is wearing some title belt for some small organization, which probably has a bunch of tough guys in Russia. You know what? You can't. I mean, this guy is a really kind of an unknown quantity. He's definitely a finisher, right? He's got 17 finishes out of his 18 wins. But how many people have finished Saeed Nurmagomedov? The answer is 0.
0.
So that kind of makes for an interesting equation, doesn't it? You got the Tajikistan guy who, if he beats you, he's going to finish you 95% of the time. And the guy he's going up against, no one has ever finished in 20 fights. Mm-hmm. So I mean, the unknown quantity here makes it not really a good betting play. It's kind of an X factor because of how much we don't know about Mr. Gafurov. But I mean, if he's great, then this could be a really competitive fight. If he isn't, then he could get completely smashed here. I think for whatever reason, the odds makers are really feeling somehow he's going to be really good. And I think there's a chance that he won't be. I wouldn't put much money on here, but if you can get Saeed Nurmagomedov with 8 times as many fights in the UFC than Mr. Gafurov, I'm going Saeed Nurmagomedov every time. And I think it's good value, even though he's my favorite.
No, I agree. The experience, there's something to be said for having that experience. And I personally love Saeed. This was one I was eyeballing really early. And I think at 2-1 is great value there. You don't have to risk a lot. Possibly could even look at maybe going to a decision. But I like, Saeed in a decision. But I like Saeed, man. I think that's good value there at 2-1. The experience is hard to beat. And he's, like you said, he's not related to Khabib, but it just seems like those guys, they just maul you. They just get you down. They just maul you. And it's really hard to combat that. I mean, you look at what Khabib did running roughshod over the UFC. It was just so hard to defend. And I'm not saying this guy is on that caliber. Obviously Khabib was a whole nother animal, but being in the UFC, there's just something to be said about in that ring or octagon, if you will, having that crowd presence that you can't replicate that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
yeah. I will say that Mr. Saeed is not as much of a grappler as some of those guys, but he definitely does have grappling, having been in the Sambo system. He's a really tall guy, though, for 135 pounds, 5'8".
Yeah.
In fact, I think 5'8" at 135 is about what my stats were when I was about 14 years old. Funny enough, but nevertheless, he's a very good balanced fighter, and but it's interesting. It's kind of Eastern Bloc guy against Eastern Bloc guy, and I think some of these odds makers are just assuming if your last name ends in an OV, then you're a stone cold killer, probably, and most of them are, but not all. And so this is going to be the test. Hey, if this guy Gafurov comes in there and wins, he will have made a big statement. But for a second UFC fight, when you lost your first one against kind of a lesser opponent, unlikely would be what the guys would say. That number that you and Gafurov beat Saeed. Sorry if I stepped on your word.
No, you're fine. Yeah, and I think I'm gonna roll with Saeed in that. I like Saeed 2-1. I think in UFC's a pretty decent value if you feel confident. Definitely worth laying down a buck or two on Saeed for sure.
Absolutely, good parlay piece too, I think as well.
Mm-hmm. And two, if it blows up on your face, then you got the rest of the card to try to go back and make it up. So
yep, without a doubt, or the rest of the main card. Yeah, absolutely. All right, next fight looks like it is what they would call in pro wrestling kind of a swap fight. Although I never like to really put that out there and frame it in any type of way like, oh, this other guy has no chest, blah blah blah, because that's not true. But let's break it down here. We got Ikram Aliskerov against Warley Alves. Now this card is in United Arab Emirates. And for the Muslim fighters, the Arabic-speaking fighters, they're warmly welcomed in that crowd, which would make sense, because that's where it is in Abu Dhabi. And so it's almost like a home crowd as far as the amount of people cheering for these Muslim Arabic-speaking fighters, and that's absolutely fine. Right. So in this fight, you have one of those guys in Ikram Aliskerov, and I think he's trained maybe with Habib. And Habib is there, with AKA, now I guess they're calling it Team Eagle, and it's the American Kickboxing Association. But let's take a look. Ikram Aliskerov, this reference site is sometimes wrong. You know what? Because Sherdog is wrong so much, let me check. Capology.
Seeing him as a huge favorite.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Capology again. Don't spell it exactly right. Pull it up. Okay, here we go. Ikram Aliskerov, and this is going to show him beating out affiliation champion. So that's not saying either. Okay, I have a feeling I've seen his face over there at AKA Team Eagle. I could be wrong, but nevertheless, let's take a look at him. The man is 14-1 with 10 finishes, 5 submissions, and 5 KOs out of Dagestan, Russia as well. He's from the exact same town as Habib and Saeed Nurmagomedov. Now, Saeed does not train, I don't believe, with Team Eagle at AKA. But anyway, nevertheless, Ikram is a 30-year-old in the 185-pound division. So as a bigger man, he's probably got 3 years left in the prime. And a very good start, 14-1, and he is on a 6-fight win streak. And you know what? He fought in the Eagle FC before he got his break in the Dana White contendership. I'm pretty darn sure he is over there training with AKA and Habib Nurmagomedov and Team Eagle and Javier Mendez and American Kickboxing Association. Anyway, he's on a 6-fight win streak, only one in the UFC. He came in and finished a very tough guy, Bill Hawes, in 2 minutes and 10 seconds of the first round in his first UFC fight. That's pretty darn impressive.
Yeah.
And he's a finisher, 71% finish rate. His one loss, oh my gosh, check this out. His one loss was 4 years ago when he was 26 years old against a man that is also fighting on this card in the co-main event, Khamzat Chimaev.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the only guy that got the better of Ikram Aliskerov. And since that fight, he has rattled off 6 victories in a row with 5 of them by finish. So this is a killer. This is a very tough guy. And his opponent, Warley Alves. What I hate about this fight is Warley Alves is mostly a 170-pound fighter. Although you know what, when I see this, it makes me wonder if Ikram is going down in weight or if Warley is. Well, I think Warley's going up. Let me just check on UFC.com to be sure here, because the other reference sites don't seem to like to show the weight.
I'm listening to Ikram at 186 and then Warley at 170. So
yeah, and that's not showing what their weight was today, because the weigh-in is not until Friday. But let me see on the UFC's website here if they're going to identify the weight classes. I think they do.
And you can't even really hold that against Ikram very much, because as we said, Chimab, he's undefeated. So that's
right, exactly.
a tough customer.
Oh, exactly. And by the way, yes, this is a middleweight fight. So Warley is kind of a blown up welterweight. And the tough thing about Warley is if you go back 8 years, Warley started out his career on a 10-fight win streak, including being the only man other than Kamaru Usman to beat Colby Covington. And he was the only man ever to submit Colby Covington. Now,
wow.
But Colby was really young and new. Well, not young, but was new in the UFC at that point. The problem is, since then, it's been a mix of wins and losses. Right. In the last 7 years, Warley Alves has 6 losses and has actually only had 4 wins. But his last fight could have gone either way. A split decision loss. He's a tough man from Denmark, Nicholas Dalby. He's a tough guy. It's just that he's going to be undersized here, although the height difference is only an inch. He's 32. His opponent, Ikram's 30, so that's not a big difference. Warley is a really, really tough guy. When he's on point, he's a very strong, crafty guy. And in fact, the odds here that are giving him no chance, the odds here are the same as the Mohammed Mokaev. You know what? They're even worse. They're even longer odds than Mokaev and Tim Elliott. And so, wow. Alascarov's anywhere from minus 600 to minus 670. And Warley Alves anywhere from plus 430 to plus 475. I mean, the hometown guy is the younger guy with the better record, the less mileage on him. He really is one of these killer Dagestani wrestlers, like you said. So chances are, no matter what Warley Alves does, probably it's not going to be enough. But you know what? If you just put Warley in a time machine and make him 5 years younger and have that confidence that he had 5, 6, 7 years ago, then I would say, you never know. But in this situation, but I'll tell you, the guy's tricky. And if it goes to the decision, for sure, the decision will go to the A side, which is Ikram. But Warley can make this interesting. I don't like laying those odds. And for people watching, I mean, it's just like everyone says, hey, if you look at Tyson Fury, laid odds on him over his whole career, either he won or was in a draw. All you had to do was bet him, even if you're putting down $1,000 to win 100. Same thing for Generation X guys like myself. Maybe you do, or you're still probably you're older millennial, or younger than me. But probably when you were a little kid, betting on Mike Tyson in the early days was free money. Even if he was $2,000, even if you had to bet $2,000 to win 100, you knew you were going to win your $100.
Yeah,
but
Floyd Mayweather, the same
yes,
situation.
Exactly. But it's not advisable. It's not advisable. If you do that enough, all you need to do is lose one bet, and it wipes out all your profit, your small profits from the last 10 bets. So I would say that Alaskarov really should win this fight, but I have a feeling Alves is going to have his moment. Alves. I mean, here's what I'm going to say. It's going to be one way or the other, and this may sound redundant or silly, but it's not going to be, I think, a somewhat one-sided fight. It's either going to be completely one-sided with Akram just blasting him out of there, or I think it's going to be a competitive fight where Akram does get some resistance and Warley makes it.
Yeah, I think Warley's going to have his work cut out for him. Like you said, I mean, anything can happen, but I don't see the odds being in his favor, so to speak. I don't see me taking the odds the other way. That's a lot of chalk to lay. One I'll probably just sit back and watch. Even throwing that in a parlay is not going to help your odds
not much.
very much. I mean, you're talking, a very, very small percentage. So really the risk is not worth the reward. Either way you look at it. So, for me, it's a pass, but hey, I don't know what people's money situations are. If you got plenty of bread to throw down, could be an easy couple of hundred for you. So by all means, knock yourself out. For me, it's probably a pass.
Sorry to walk step on your words, Hollywood. But the only thing I could think of is if you wanted to cover yourself with kind of a hedge, you can pick that Ikram wins this fight inside the distance, although you're not going to make much money on that either. But you're not going to have to lay $600 to win 100. You probably just have to lay 400 to win 100. It's not much better. But and then you could also put like half a unit or whatever, put $50 or $25 on all bets, just in case you might pull the upset,
Yeah.
But you never know on that. But probably going to be Ikram. And and so let's move on. We are moving on. And I'm sorry, did you want to announce, or is it okay if I move on?
No, you announce. You're a lot better with these names, man. I'll be butchering these names.
No problem, brother.
This card, they're not
a lot of
one. I might can do the main event, but that's about it.
You got it, no problem at all. And so the next fight is very interesting. Magomed Ankalaev. This is the only guy out of that general area, and he's also out of the same town as two of the other guys on this card, and Habib Nurmagomedov, and I think Islam. And this is the man that's in the highest weight class of these Dagestani guys. I'm sure there's someone outside the UFC that's from there that's a heavyweight, but most of these guys from Dagestan are between 135 and 185 from that general area. This is the exception. Magomed Ankalaev is the big man from that area, 205 pounder, 6'3", 17-1 with 9 KOs. So he's got a 53% finish rate, but he's fought a lot of really tough guys. His one loss was getting submitted in his very first UFC fight by a really good jiu-jitsu guy, Paul Craig, after he had been beating him, and he got caught in Paul Craig's triangle. No shame, Paul Craig has triangle a ton of people. But anyway, Magomed Ankalaev had a fight for the vacant light heavyweight championship last December against former champ Jan Blachowicz from Poland. Most of us felt that Ankalaev edged him, but they made the fight a draw. And in a really weird twist, because this still doesn't make sense to me. I guess it shows that even though UFC is not WWE, even though now they have the same ownership, they are looking at entertainment value, because when that fight was a draw, to me, you reschedule that damn fight and the winner gets the title back. It's a no-brainer, but it didn't happen. Dana White said, I don't like what these guys did. I don't think these guys really went for it. So I'm gonna push them backwards and reschedule two other guys for the vacant title fight. And it was really a head scratcher, because how the hell I don't think I've ever seen that, and I'm sure these guys and their managers were really angry. I mean, how do you well, these guys didn't do too good a job, so we'll just push them out of the way. And they're like, well, wait a second, but so Ankalaev, I think, has been pretty pissed off about that. Now, his opponent, Johnny Walker, was not his opponent in that fight. So you have Ankalaev, really, who should have got, in my opinion, an immediate rematch or fight against whoever, Blachowicz probably, and instead he was pushed to the side, and then Jamal Hill went on to beat Glover Teixeira. Since then, Jamal Hill is now injured and has relinquished his title. So this fight here may be a title. Well, you know what? No, Yuri Prochazka, the first guy that had relinquished his title from injury, I think is going to fight No, he's going to fight Alex Pereira for the title. So the winner of this fight could very well be next in line to fight the winner of that title fight if it's not Jamal Hill. So these guys are way up there. So Magomed Ankalaev, the Dagestani, 17-1, 9 KOs. He's 31 years old, 205 pounds, pretty much barely into his prime. His prime would be probably another 3 years or close to it at that weight class. So he's a good age at 31. Very seasoned guy. He's really not happy with that draw. It should have been a win on his record, and then to be brushed aside. So he's got something to prove here. And he's, like he said in the UFC Embedded episode that I saw, he said, I got to get this thing. Absolutely got to get this win. It's funny. He's won his last 10 fights with one draw, so it's not like he's in desperate need of a win to not lose his job, but he just wants to get that bad taste out of his mouth.
Right.
Right. His opponent is a very unique guy, a Brazilian guy with the name Johnny Walker. And he's a big, tall guy with a big mohawk hair or crazy hair. Yeah, 6'6", some folks say 6'5", but he's 21-7 with 19 finishes. So if he beats you, he pretty much finishes you. But if you beat him half the time or more than half the time, you finish him. Johnny is 31 years old, also record 21-7, 18 finishes as opposed to 17-1 with 9 finishes. The difference is that that's 7 losses as opposed to 1 loss. But Walker, in his defense, is 4 of his 7 losses came in the UFC against good guys, good tough guys. Still, this is a weird fight. Because Walker, I think, is a brown or black belt in jiu-jitsu, although he's not like a ground specialist. That he can be on his back since his legs are so long and his arms are so long. But it's there's black belts and then there's black belts every style. The black belt who could be your son that gets his black belt in a traditional style when he's 12 years old. He doesn't deserve it, but it's part of the curriculum. And then you put him up against some kid whose dad was like a world karate champion who trained him out in the snow every night since he was a baby. And that second kid is going to absolutely annihilate that first kid. And a high level jiu-jitsu as well. You take a jiu-jitsu black belt who's the best guy in his school and try to put him up against the Gordon Ryan, and that jiu-jitsu black belt professional in school gets tapped out with second. So I don't feel that Walker is this beast jiu-jitsu black belt, but he is good. He's got some skill. Ankalaev, though, with his sambo and his strong top game, is going to be the better guy on the ground. So Walker, I don't think, wants to be under Magomed Ankalaev on the feet. He's got the reach. He's got unorthodox striking, and Ankalaev's striking seems a bit tentative against Blachowicz. But the difference is Blachowicz is a very polished boxer with a lot of power in his hands, and Walker kind of has precision and unorthodox, kind of quick punching from weird angles, but he's not necessarily a really polished boxer with a ton of power. So I think Ankalaev, and in this fight, I'm going to imagine Ankalaev will be maybe 3-1. Let's take a look here. Right about 3-1. He's anywhere from minus 350 to minus 375. The comeback on Walker is anywhere from plus 275 to 285. This will be a fun fight. They're both talented guys, and I think what I like about this fight is Walker's on a 3-fight win streak. And his loss previous to that was the former champion Jamal Hill, who fought him quickly coming in. And Ankalaev did get a draw against Blachowicz, but hasn't lost in his last 11 fights in his first UFC fight. This is going to be some fun. This is going to be a test of Ankalaev, though, because even though most of us felt Ankalaev won that fight, a lot of people were just impressed. It's not that he was fighting a bump. I mean, Blachowicz is a tough guy and a former champ, but I think Ankalaev was 3-1 going in that fight, also favorite. And I think we just thought he would go in there as the younger man and just beat the brakes off of Blachowicz, and he didn't. And I think there's no question here. And so I still feel pretty confident that he wins. But if he makes a mistake or if he's tentative, Walker could light him up. What's your feeling on this? interesting fight.
Yeah, I tend to agree with. I mean, listen, that's the case with a lot of these fights. You have to make sure that you go in focused against your opponent, and if you do make a mistake, you can pay for it. And those types of fights, when you are expected to go in and dominate, and you don't have the performance that everyone is expecting you to, that can be a lot of added pressure for your next fight. Because let's be honest, fight styles for the most part are what sells these pay-per-views. Some people, Floyd Mayweather, for the last, I don't know how many years, he played the best defense in boxing that you could pay money to see. The sweet science of boxing. You were not going to see a brawl from him. You were not going to see Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward style fighting. So, it boils down to what the people want to see. And when you try to put that in front of the eyeballs, you sometimes can get off your game plan. So you have to be able to manage keeping with what doing what your strength is, but also trying to make those statement style wins. And so this could be a make or break. He could come out and, be really focused on his game and take him out. But, the other Johnny Walker's coming in at 6'6", 3-inch height advantage. So that's a lot of man to throw around that cage. So he's going to have to be on his A game, but I believe he does probably come out with the win. Again, those odds are just really hard to test. I mean, possibly, maybe throwing something in there mixed in with a all favorites parlay or something like that, but a little too much chalk for me to risk because of that pressure, because of what you just mentioned. He could be coming in there with added pressure, of his own performance, not necessarily what he should do against Johnny Walker, but of his own performance. And sometimes that can be worse.
Yeah, indeed. Last thing I'll say on that, Hollywood, is sometimes these guys that are 6'3", I think more in boxing, but sometimes these guys that are 6'3", they're almost either equally as tall or slightly taller than their opponents at this light heavyweight. Heavyweight, a lot of guys are 6'3", 4, 5. But at light heavyweight, a lot of these guys at 6'3" don't fight guys that are 2-3 inches taller than them. Right. And when they do in boxing, it seems to throw some. They're used to being the taller fighter. And but I think in MMA probably not as much. Although at light heavyweight, I don't know if I don't think Ankalaev fought anyone taller than him, at least in the UFC. Let me take a look. Blachowicz is not taller than him. Anthony Smith is about his height. Thiago Santos wasn't taller. Uzumir wasn't taller. Krylov was his height exactly. Lavo was shorter. Lugia was taller. Rayo was shorter. Yeah, I have to look at some of these guys that he fought over in Russia and other places. But this really could be the first guy that's a couple 3 inches taller than him. But I don't think that'll be a problem. But I think that if the Walker camp is smart, they can probably plan to use that as much as they can.
That's a lot bigger advantage in boxing for sure. UFC not so, especially if you were taking him down, then it doesn't matter how tall the guy is, he's stretched out on the mat. But definitely something to watch and see how he handles, a guy with the height advantage. That could be his game plan, to take him down.
And what do you see on the reach? Sorry to interrupt you, but what are you seeing the reach anywhere? I know you have.
Looks like 7. Actually, Walker's got a heavy advantage in that, almost 10 inches. He's got 82 inches compared to 75.
7 inches. Well, yeah, that's a good reach of that. That's a good reach.
That right there, you can, with the right game plan, if your takedown defense is on point, you can keep that match, on your feet, and this could be interesting, man. It could be an interesting fight.
Oh yeah, I think that Ankalaev will punch with him a little bit to come in, but then it's going to go for those takedowns. And in all honesty, Walker's takedown defense was proven to be pretty good, but I really think, in all honesty, these guys from Dagestan really pride themselves on their wrestling. Going up against, and it's one thing if they're going up against an American collegiate wrestler who's Division I really good, then they know they're meeting close to their equal, maybe even their equal. But you're going up against a non-American guy from Brazil who did not grow up in any freestyle or collegiate or folk style or Greco-Roman wrestling. So I really think Ankalaev knows that his cousins, his brothers, his community are going to look at him and say, if you can't take down this guy with these long legs from Brazil, then what the hell are you doing here? You're not from Dagestan. You know, go back home and let your mother make you for lunch so they look for a job. You know?
Yeah.
So I think he realized I better take down this Brazilian if I want to, you know, not have an enormous amount of embarrassment from my brother. So yeah, I think it's gonna be very hard for Walker to stop that. You know? So, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, definitely on Goliath, I think, and it could be a fun fight though. All right, and then we are on to the co-main event of the evening. What's so interesting about this card on Hollywood is two opponents. The one opponent in the main and one in the co-main put these fights in less than 2 weeks' notice. This is very, very rare. It's one thing if you're a guy no one's heard of to take a short notice UFC fight, but that happens all the time. A lot of times when you get signed, it's because they have a short notice fight for you. Then you move past that, and you find a lot of guys who are ranked between maybe number 20 to number 30 that will take these short notice fights, right? Because they need the opportunity. They need the payday. They want the opportunity. You got to see get to the UFC, especially when they're getting good numbers. Then you see how many people rank between number 10 and number 20 take a short notice fight. It's not a lot. But then when you say how many people ranked in the top 5 or a current world champion or a guy who was just champion 2 years ago that are going to take a fight on 2 weeks notice, never. I almost never. And to have two of them on the same card makes this a really unusual card. Kamaru Usman was just the champion 2 years ago and one of the best pound-for-pound fighters. He's lost to Leon Edwards twice, right? He's talking about going up to 185, which makes sense. He's a big, thick guy. His younger brother is 3 inches taller than him at 6'3", and fights at heavyweight and king. Now, I know not everyone has the same genetics as their brother, but my thought is if your brother's walking around 260 pounds, you're probably walking around at 200 some pounds.
Right.
And Usman always kind of was the guy who walked around at like 205 and touched the 170. Now that he's 36 years old, I agree that just be done with that 170 division. So he was looking for an opportunity at 185. And it's unfortunate that it wasn't one with a full training camp to test him with all his snot, as they say, in boxing. Instead, he's going up against a 29-year-old killer in Khamzat Chimaev on 10 days' notice, I think. So that's a stud. That's definitely a stud. His management probably said, hey, are we doing this? And he's like, yeah, we're doing this. And he said, let's do it. You know, he's definitely going to be stronger than he's ever been fighting for the first time, at least in the UFC at 185. A lot of these fighters start out their career in regional promotion at a little bit of a heavier weight, so they don't have to do 2 battles during the same period of time. One, cutting the weight and dealing with that pain, agony, and deprivation. 2 fights. They figure it's just getting your career started. Just make it 1 fight. Fight at a weight that's pretty comfortable with. So he may have indeed had a UFC 180. He may have had a smaller promotion, but his whole career in the UFC was 170. Now we're seeing him at 185 on 2 weeks' notice against Khamzat. I mean, here's what I'll say. Khamzat never has gone against a really good American collegiate wrestler. Now, Kamaru, we know, is that. Now, he wasn't a Division I wrestler, but he was a Division II national champion. And you saw when he went up against Colby Covington, who was a D1 All-American, that their wrestling was pretty equal. So, in many cases, a D2 national champion is going to be pretty close to as good as some D1 All-Americans. And then when you talk about wrestling for MMA, which is a little bit different, it's really good. So Khamzat usually goes in there with disregard for the grappling of his opponents. Now, Gilbert Burns had a really good battle with him because Burns is kind of a shorter, tank-like guy. and 170, and Hamzat's fighting skinny at 170. Burns has some good wrestling, but a really good jiu-jitsu. So Hamzat wasn't really wanting to just go out there and bum rush him. He can get caught in a guillotine choke like that and get choked unconscious. And so, but he still did kind of rush in on a few occasions and take Burns down. It's just that Burns was able to fight his way up. In this situation, I don't know if he wants to try that against the D2 national champion. You don't just come in on a D2 national champion and say, oh, I'm just going to dip in here and grab his legs and go be up in the air, because you're going to grab his legs and they're going to feel like it's been made out of marble. Right. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like you're trying to pull a statue. But if anyone could do it, it might be Hamzat. But then Usman might try for the takedown.
Right.
It's an interesting matchup. The only thing I hate is that it's 2 weeks notice for the older guy, which is 2 strikes. So the odds here, what are we going to say, Hollywood? They're going to make Hamzat maybe 2.5 to 1 favorite, 2 to 1?
I'd say 2.5, 3 to 1.
Let's take a look. And that is correct. Hamzat is anywhere from minus 300 to minus 340. The comeback on Usman anywhere from plus 240, 235 to plus 270. You know, I think this is going to be a fight. Does Usman have a chance? Yes. What's funny is this. It's Usman's first UFC fight at 185 and only Hamzat's third UFC fight at 185. Usman's gone up against good wrestling. Hamzat really hasn't gone up against high-level wrestling. So there's interesting factors to it, but just the short notice and the age, both are going against. Man. Yeah, I probably would say Hamzat, but I really would like. I cheer for the older guys with the old gray-haired goat hero, you know, and I love to see Usman do something. You got a little bit of gray, you know, and you know, I can actually against either guy. But I think we've got a chance. Could he win on paper? No, because of the short notice of the age. But who the heck knows? No experience at the UFC level at 185 for Usman. Minimal experience in 2 fights at the 185-pound level for Chimaev.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go against Chimaev, man. I've watched a number of his fights. You know, he's just a brawler. I mean, he's a dominator. He goes in and he just takes over the fight. And, you know, Kamar, he's got a couple of things working against him. Obviously, the main one, very short notice. Tough for any fighter. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Also coming off 2 losses, back-to-back KOs, if I'm not mistaken.
So the first one KO and the second one he lost it.
Oh, he lost it. Okay, was it a decision the second? Okay, I could have swore he
lost it. You know, well, let's take a look. If remember, I'm getting old. I'm older than you, so my memory could be mistaken. But now, okay, let's take a look. Okay, if it will open up on the computer here, what's happening here? Tell me, okay, you're there, then I'm going back over here.
Oh, the first one was like the last minute KO Leon got the first meeting.
The first one, first one was that head kick KO. Sorry to talk over, you know, I don't think it's going to let me see anything. Wait a second, yes it is. Okay, let's go to Usman. Yeah, I'm pretty darn sure the second one was a decision. We're going to find out here in 5 seconds. Yes, not only was it a decision, it was just a majority decision.
Okay.
That means I think one of the judges scored it for Usman.
Really?
You know, well, one is a split decision. And you know what? But you know what? Let me go here. Let's go see exactly that here. Let's go back here and see that who judges what. But because a split decision, I think means that 2 judges went up against 1 judge.
Right.
As far as the conflict, the majority decision, I think means that it was maybe like 2 judges had it for 1 guy, and maybe another judge had it wrong. You know, for whatever reason, my computer is not letting me look. Wait, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, here we go. As soon as I say that, it looks up. All right, here we go. Okay. first of all, let's see, the sure dog judges had it 48-46 Edwards, 48-46 Edwards, and then one of the sure dog judges had it a draw 47-47. The official judges had it exactly the same as the sure dog judges. Two judges had it 48-46 Edwards, and one judge had it a draw. So no one scored it for Usman, but one judge scored it draw.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I think I remember that Usman just not really being as active as people thought he would be. Now that I'm thinking back, I think he wasn't very – he lacked a little fire in that fight, if I'm not mistaken, from what I remember.
He did, but he was in it. He was in it the whole time.
He was in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not as dynamic, and it almost seems like he wanted to be careful to not get knocked out again.
Right, and that very well could have been the case. And like I said, you're coming off now 2 losses. When, like you said, 2 years ago, he was king of the mountain. You know, he beat Kobe. I think it was.
He was on a 10-fight. He was on a 15-fight win streak, I think, 2 years.
Yeah, and that fight between him and Kobe was a great fight. But
2 fights between him.
Yeah. 2. Yep. So you got the pressure of coming off 2 losses. Definitely, short notice. Obviously, he's 36. So you're getting up there. Sometimes when you get to that age, maybe you want to grab those co-main event headline paydays while you still can, while you still got some value to your name. Definitely a tall order.
And he's in unfriendly territory with Hamzat being one of the Arabic-speaking Muslim fighters again in Abu Dhabi, as they're going to be screaming for him.
Yeah. So you're going to have the crowd working against you, which some people feed off that. But this is going to be a tall order for Usman. I got to tell you, I believe I'm going to probably lay something down on Chimaev. If not, definitely put him in a parlay. I don't see any other way that fight goes, to be quite honest with you, unless just something crazy abnormal happens. I think he moves on to 13-0.
Yeah, I think so. Too. I'd love to see if he's close. But I hate to see Usman just get wiped out. But if Usman got wiped out, you know what? If he gets wiped out, some people will really believe even more in Hamzat, but other people will point out the short notice.
Yeah. And that's kind of the benefit you have if you go in there and you can make something happen. Oh, okay, good. If you were able to pull out a win, even if it's a close fight, you can still say, well, had I had a full training camp, what could have happened? So the risk really does outweigh the rule. Even if you don't come away with a win, you can still win in a sense. If he comes in and makes a close fight, and just say it goes to the decision, that a split decision, doesn't go his way, then you can argue, hey, with a full camp, what could I have done there? So then you have the possibility for a rematch. So, I understand why Usman took the fight. I'm not going to take him, but I understand why he did it.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to set the stage for the main event?
Yeah. Okay, so Volkanovski, did he take this fight on short notice?
Yes, indeed. And it's the first time I've ever heard of a current champion taking a fight on short notice in someone else's backyard. And it's like 9 days notice for him. I think Usman got this fight 2 or 3 days before Volkanovski got the fight. I mean, gee, and I'm betted he's saying the reason is that they kept saying maybe in January this fight can happen. And he was feeling so good, he didn't want to wait until January. And the second part of it, there was some evidence that in that fight where many of us, including me, felt that Volk edged Islam, a real close fight, but he didn't get a decision. A lot of people were feeling that it seems like Islam was willing to fight everyone else on the face of the earth and not fight Volk. So I kind of feel like Volk thought, hey man, I got to chase this kid down because he's running that thing. And now they're saying, you want to fight him now? Yes. Because if I don't fight him now, I could be chasing him next year and the year after. And, I'm not trying to say that I'm throwing that shade on Islam. I don't think Islam's afraid of anyone. But I feel that Volk was like, let's do this because I want this bad boy back.
Who was Islam's original opponent?
Islam's original opponent was Charles Oliveira in a rematch of their own. Right. And that was a really exciting matchup. Now, I'm glad you mentioned that because they're very different fighters. Islam's 5'10", Charles is 5'11". Volk is 5'7". Some people even say like 5'6", 5'6.5". Charles is a jiu-jitsu stylist, is a great man. Really slick boxer, long and rangy, aggressive style. Doesn't really try to keep you down that often, although he can. But on the ground, he's a threat with his jiu-jitsu and a great threat with long reach and punching. Volk is a shorter fighter with short reach, not tremendous jiu-jitsu, but tremendous jiu-jitsu defense. Really good boxing. Doesn't really take much. His legs are short, but his wrestling is very good for a non-American and a non-Eastern Bloc guy. And he's training with one of the best jiu-jitsu guys out there from Australia, Craig Jones. It's funny, there's people that don't know there's another sport which is jiu-jitsu submission grappling without any punching or strike. And there's a lot of guys in that sport that are really, really impressive. Some of them are going into MMA. Some guys go from MMA just to jiu-jitsu. Not nearly as much money in jiu-jitsu. But what some MMA guys will do is bring in some of the very best top guys in jiu-jitsu if they want their jiu-jitsu to go. But I remember about 4 years ago, I said to myself, man, Volk is going to start facing some guys with jiu-jitsu. Why doesn't he bring in his countryman, the unique Craig Jones? And then, literally, 8-9 months later, they're like, look at this. Craig Jones is going to be helping Volk. Of course. I said it 9 months earlier. Go grab your countryman. Why wouldn't he want to help you, And now Craig Jones is a staple in Volkanovski's camp. In fact, Volkanovski almost got submitted twice against Brian Ortega, a really good greaser. And he was able to get out of both of them. I think a lot of credit to Craig Jones, because Craig Jones is a bigger man than these guys. Craig Jones is 6 feet tall and walks around at 195, I think, even close to 200 at 190 or something. So when he's there training with Volk, not only is he a lot bigger, but his jiu-jitsu, no one's jiu-jitsu, even some of these guys from Dagestan, I don't think their jiu-jitsu is quite as good as Craig Jones. That's all he does. That's what he does for a living. And so when Volk has Craig Jones on top of him, his technique is so slick. Every part of his body's in the right position on. One thing you can see for people that don't know in jiu-jitsu, if you don't know what you're doing, you got to kind of get your body in a position and you think you're right, and you're grabbing someone's arm and trying to yank it, pull it, and twist and turn. When you're really good at jiu-jitsu, your body is in such the right position that you literally can just stick out your arm like this, put it on their arm, in the middle of their back. Because your body is right there, relax, even yawn, hook their arm, move and break it in a second, because your body's in the right position. So Volk is, but Islam's game is really, but Islam could not get a submission even close on Volk in that last fight because of Craig Jones and just Volk's determination. But short notice and going back up in weight. What do you think? Let's say the odds. What should these odds be? If it wasn't a short notice fight, these odds would be pretty darn close.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that first fight, what are you, 2-1?
I agree. It's probably going to be 2-1 just because I think of the short notice. I agree. Had this been a fighter where both of them got a good camp in, you might maybe Islam the slight favorite from the previous win, but not much. But I would think probably 2-1.
Yeah, and we are right. Islam is anywhere from -250 to -280, and Volk is anywhere from +200 to +225. Before I give my opinion, let me throw this one to you first. What do you think here? That Volk is so confident. He's such a little Tasmanian devil of a guy. He really didn't really complain, but he and his camp felt he won that fight. And in his backyard in Australia, they took it away from him, although it was very close. Now he is going in the other guy's backyard. What do you think, man?
If there was an underdog on this card that I feel confident in putting money on, it's Volk. The last few UFCs that we've covered, even back with Sterling and O'Malley, the underdog has come out victorious in the championship fight. Even in fight night that we covered on the last one you and I done together. So, it's not uncommon for these underdogs to win the fight. And Volk it's hard to even say him and underdog in the same sentence, to be quite honest.
I know, it's crazy. It really is kind of crazy.
Yeah. So to even put that in perspective, yes, it's short notice. Would I have liked to had a little bit more of a camp with him? But Volk is one of those guys, if I had to guess, you've heard the term, you stay ready. That way you ain't got to get ready. If there's a guy that walks around ready, it's Volk. And
especially at this weight, because when he has to go to 145, he probably wouldn't have done that on 9 days' notice.
Right.
But at 155, he probably walks around at 163 or something like that.
Yeah. So not a stretch for him to get ready at all for this. Obviously, like you said, the previous match, he's got a good understanding of what Islam's going to bring. I like Volk, man. I think the value is there. It's too much of a risk to go with Islam, in my opinion, especially if you're getting it at like 270. If there's a chance to go with the underdog, man, I like Volk here. I don't know how you feel, but I'm rolling with Volk. That's my underdog pick of the card.
Yes, I think so too. I do. And it's interesting because I've never done any interviews with Volk's coaching staff, City Boxing out of New Zealand, and then a couple of his other guys in Australia. And I'm sure they're great guys. I've done interviews on a few occasions with Islam's, head coach, Javier Mendez. So I hate to go against these guys because they do win 88% of the time. And I sometimes think, is he going to watch this and say, man, Colin, I give you all those interviews and you speak against my guys? I don't think so. I think he's a man of experience and he's going to realize I'm just doing what I got to do with my thoughts. But in all honesty, Islam's an amazing fighter, a great camp. Habib Nurmagomedov is the co-head coach or assistant head coach to Javier Mendez. Habib is there giving his all and training Islam. They've got all the guys there. A whole bunch of guys that like you that have that beard and that. A lot of those guys don't have the mustache. They have just that beard, and the sideburns. But man, it's. I tell you this, it kind of would be poetic justice since Volk was not given the win in his backyard and had to make all his fans in the stands sad. Poetic justice would be Islam doesn't get the win and Volk gets to make Islam's fans in the stands sad. That would hurt about his fair play. I think there's a very good chance that I think there is value in Volk. I think he can do it. I do. Do you think, how much more of a chance do you think Volk has than Usman? Probably maybe substantially better chance.
Oh, yeah. I think substantially better. Like I said, Usman, I don't know if he was prepared to come back in. I don't know if he had a fight lined up in the coming pay-per-view. So there's really no telling where he was at mentally and physically, with his career, especially coming off 2 losses. Sometimes it's hard to get back motivated. Volk, on the other hand, is a champion. He's got that mindset. He's staying ready. I think you've got a substantially better chance going with him on short notice than you do with Usman for sure. Plus the opponent, the caliber of opponent. I mean, Usman's got a tall order. You can't say that he should have beaten a guy of that caliber before because this, he's not. I don't think he's faced quite a beast like he's fixing to run up on Saturday night. Volk has, and like you said, very well should have possibly won, depending on your opinion of how that fight went.
Absolutely. Although if they both come in, that would be a hell of a good payday in a parlay if you parlay Volk and Usman. But not only that, then both guys winning on short notice, that would be unlikely, although it's possible. Yeah. But yeah, my thought, like you said, is maybe a parlay with Chimaev and Volk. It's gonna be very interesting. I tell you what though, man, if they both lose, I'm gonna be frustrated because both of them will have had short notice, and it'll once again say the guy's not going to be the same on short notice. And but then again, also in a way, it'll take away a little bit of the victory from their opponent.
Yeah,
because all people will say, well, you didn't really fight him as good as he could have been. Yeah. You fought him on a really short notice.
Well, and to me, that puts more pressure on those guys because, like you said, it's like a young kid getting in a fight with a much older guy. what are you
Right.
gonna in a street fighter, however you want to call it? What are you really going to gain by knocking out a 40-year-old man? And if by
Yeah.
chance the 40-year-old man beats your ass, then they're going to say, "Hey, that 40-year-old guy took you to the woodshed." But then you knock
Yeah.
him out. Oh, you beat up an old man. What's it? You're in a no
Right. Right.
situation there.
Yeah, you're right. The fighters that did have the full camp in a way are in a no way. They literally have to just go in there and annihilate them. And even
Yeah.
then, some people are going to say, well, he was,
They can go in there and tear him apart. They're gonna be like, "Well, he wasn't ready. What do you expect?
right,
You should have done that. You should have went in there and done that."
right, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be exciting. 5 rounds is going to be the distance for, of course, the main event. The other, I believe, is 3, unless you take a look here and see. Let's see, it's got to be 3 because the other one's not any sort of. You know what though? Someone has told me. Someone told me. I read somewhere that the Usman Himaev fight is the title qualifier, but that being the case, I don't think it's 5 rounds. In fact, I don't think that on last minute notice Usman would be willing to go 5 rounds. So I'm going to say the co-main event is going to be 3, and the main is going to be 5. Does that change your mind in any regards? It doesn't change mine.
No, not at all. I mean, I would. That's a smart play if Usman did that. I wouldn't want to go 5 either. It doesn't change my mind. On that, I'm still going to go with Chimaev. Volk, like I said, still my pick with that. Obviously, that's a title fight, so it's going to go 5. But I don't I don't see a way this doesn't get entertaining in the main event.
Yeah,
Volk's going to bring it.
Yeah, he is.
I'm not sure what to expect on the code, but on the main, I definitely think Volk's going to bring it. And I'm going to just throw this out there too for people that are not aware. This is going to be an early pay-per-view in the States, or at least on the East Coast. You're looking at a 2 p.m. start time. I think it's 2 p.m.
East Coast time, correct. 2 p.m. start time for the main card in the East Coast.
Right.
11 a.m.
Yeah. So prelims, it says start it's at 10. So, if you go out Friday night and have a few cocktails and you want to bet on it, you better wake up early to get them in, because I've had that happen before. If it sneaks up on you and you don't realize where they're fighting. I think Khabib's final fight, I forgot who he fought. Was it Gaethje?
Gaethje, I believe.
Yeah, I completely missed that whole fight because I was thinking it was a nighttime pay-per-view, and it turns out it was in the afternoon. So just a caveat there for all you bettors, make sure you're up Saturday to place those bets, probably looking at college football too around that time. So definitely want to make sure you keep the start time in mind. That's imperative. Before we get out of here, Colin, I got one question. Did you watch last week's Paul Danis fight?
I didn't get a chance to see it, but I did get to see some clips, and I heard about it from someone that's a huge, huge fan, and he ran it all down to me, and it sounds pretty ridiculous. It sounds like Danis knew he didn't have any chance in the boxing, and Logan Paul is not even the best boxer, not as good as Jade. Yeah. But apparently then Danis went for a guillotine choke, and then Danis was angry afterwards, and he's throwing punches at some cameraman, and I don't know. It sounds kind of like a shit show. Is that kind of what you would?
Yeah, it was. I mean, Paul was obviously, and I think Paul was pissed off. Look, Danis done what he was supposed to do. He sold that fight, even though I don't think he really had a shot at winning it. He sold that fight. People that I'd say probably 80% of people that bought that pay-per-view bought it to see that fight as opposed to the main event with KS1 and Tommy Fury. They wanted to see if Paul, KSI, sorry. They wanted to see if Paul was going to just, unleash all the frustrations, because Danis was roasting Paul and I don't know if that's his wife or fiance. I mean, the Twitter beef was crazy. And I think once he got in there, he just done whatever he could do to try to save face. Paul definitely, won that fight. The interesting one was the one after that, was Tommy Fury and KS1. Is it I or one?
KSI.
KSI. Yeah. KSI, to me, won that fight, especially with Tommy Fury getting a point deducted for a punch to the back of the head. I watched that fight. KSI brought the fight. There's no way you're going to convince me that Tommy Fury won that fight, especially with getting a point deducted. At the very least, I was expecting a draw. But that's worst case scenario. I was expecting a draw. No way Tommy Fury won that fight, in my opinion. This absolutely no. And you could tell, if you watch Tyson's reaction when they announced that Tommy won, because Tyson was there in the crowd. I mean, the way he was jumping, I don't even think he thought Tommy won that fight.
Yeah, yeah. No, wasn't KSI doing a lot of clinching? I heard somewhere he was doing a lot of clinching.
I mean, I wouldn't say no more than average. I mean, he was bringing the fight, and he caught Tommy with some good shots. I mean,
so was Tommy clinching? Was it Tommy?
I would say Tommy might have been clinching a little bit more than KSI.
And you know what's interesting is that KSI beat Logan Paul, but barely.
Yeah.
Right?
Tommy, point deduction in that fight also was a huge reason why Logan lost. It was a point deduction.
Right. So that was like an even fight. Whereas Tommy beats Jake Paul, who is definitely the more talented fighter between Jake and Logan. So it would stand to reason in that math that Tommy Fury's skills would be here and KSI's skills would be there. But didn't look that way during the fight, huh?
No, it did not. And after Logan's fight, Jake was actually on the mic and he called out Fury again for a rematch. But after Fury's fight, when they gave him the decision, he said he was done with that and he was going into regular boxing. I think if I'm Tommy Fury, I may be getting the money while I can in this, whatever you want to call it, new age, combat sports that they have going on, because he's probably making decent money. And if you can't take out KSI, I don't like your chances against a legit boxer, to be quite honest. And you couldn't even knock out Paul either, but neither one of these guys are professional boxers and you couldn't finish either one of them. So I don't have the highest confidence in the world in Tommy Fury. Tyson on the other, one of the best, but Tommy,
No, exactly. It just shows you you're not your brother, so many times, right? So many times. The only brothers that are both kind of equally as good, it seems like, are the Charlo brothers. Although 5 years from now, when it's all said and done, probably one of them will have shown to have a better career. But yeah,
Blitzkos from back in the day were pretty good too.
That's right. That was another example of guys that even in the end were both really, really good. Very strange. Very strange. I mean, it's the world of influencer boxing, and I definitely think that was definitely some interesting stuff, and they're keeping on making money, and they're doing what they do. Apparently, in wrestling, though, Logan is a pretty decent pro wrestler. He's willing to do all kinds of aerial stuff, and
I'll tell you, man, he's impressive. I don't watch wrestling as much as I used to back in my younger days, for sure.
Yeah, me too.
But I watched the WrestleMania that he was at the same night Jake fought. Who was Jake's last fight?
Jake's last fight was against
Nate Diaz.
Nate Diaz.
So Logan wrestled and WrestleMania, left, hopped on a jet or whatever he did. I'm sure it was probably a private jet, flew straight down there to make it to the fight. But I mean, some of the stuff that he's doing in WWE is on par, if not better, than some of the talent that's been there for years. So people can knock these Paul boys all they want. Those guys bring it. They're not bullshitting in a sport where they're just trying to collect a check. These boys are going in and they're performing and they're getting the job done, man. So I think there's some of the greatest influencers out there.
Yeah.
To these kids of what you can become. I think they're genius at marketing. I mean, they're just, they're the blueprint of how you would market yourself.
Yeah.
Especially in today's society.
Yeah, without a doubt. They caught a good break at a young age. They worked for it to an extent, and they're working hard to maintain it. That is for sure.
Yeah. Well, hopefully all our bettors out there listening to this maybe can maintain a positive outlook, at least going in. This will be early Saturday, so you'll know where you stand going into some of your college football action. Colin, 1,000 thank you, my friends, for coming on here and lending us some of your expertise on this fight, and I hope it's a good one.
Absolutely. Hollywood, always happy to be here on Crime and Entertainment with you, and always great to get your insights, and it will be very interesting to see, man. I think we're on the same page here, and 2 short notice fights with two high profile, high ranked guys, one a world champion. Definitely going to be interesting and memorable. I think a night we won't.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for this episode of Crime and Entertainment. I am Hollywood Wade. That was Colin Crandall. And unfortunately, we are out of time. So we'll tune in next week for an all new episode of Crime and Entertainment. Colin, we appreciate it, my friend.
You got it, brother. Peace.